Hello there, and welcome back to yet another Night of the Movies podcast. And in these podcasts, I talk all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I am discussing The Morning Show Seasons 1 and 2. But before I do that, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, which is, if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello to my viewers, but you prefer to listen to your podcast, well, guess what? You can with this one too, at Night of the Movies on Spotify, and if you are already listening to this podcast on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners, then you can also check this podcast out visually on my YouTube channel at Night of the Movies on that platform as well. Likewise, whether you may be watching or listening to the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this podcast, of course, and leave me some feedback on things to improve on with future podcasts, because there's always things to improve on, and feedback is, as ever, much appreciated. Also, I should say here, and some people might have already noticed this in my intro today, I'm feeling a bit under the weather right now. I'm not feeling too well today. I'm very, very dizzy. And so, bear with me a bit. If I don't make the best sense, that's just why. Because I'm not feeling 100%. I'm feeling about 30%, to be honest. I'm not feeling well at all. But I want to do a podcast today because I don't know what other chance I'm going to get to do the podcast this week. And I also want to keep up the uploading schedule that I've got on the channel right now. Like, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but I'm trying to keep an upload schedule going on with this YouTube channel, in that I'm uploading Wednesday, Friday and Sunday, and so I wanted to keep with this uploading schedule. I wanted to record this video today so I can get it out there regardless of how I'm feeling. I just wanted to talk about the show as well because I finished it last night. So let's get into it. Without further ado, let's get into my thoughts on The Morning Show Seasons 1 and 2. So, the reason I decided to watch The Morning Show, the reason I finally checked it out, was because for the longest time it was on my watch list. Everyone's got a watch list of shows you want to get around to. I've got plenty of shows on my watch list like Breaking Bad, The Wire, Mad Men, and I'm kind of checking out Mad Men right now. I'm not totally into it, gotta be honest, but that's another matter for another day. But you get the point I'm making. I've got a watch list of TV shows I want to check out, and The Morning Show was on my watch list. But for the longest time, I also didn't really have access to it because I didn't have Apple TV Plus. It's an Apple TV Plus show, and when I heard that Apple were launching their own streaming service, I was like, yeah, I'm not paying for that. But then through means, I didn't really have to pay for it. I'm using one of my brother's accounts to watch their shows. But when I first got Apple TV Plus, though, I didn't want to check out The Morning Show straight away. There were other Apple TV Plus shows like Ted Lasso, which everyone's raving about, and Shrinking, and Severance, which I wanted to check out. There's another one which I'm forgetting off the top of my head right now, but I remember those three shows the most. Those were the shows I wanted to see when I finally was able to go on Apple TV Plus, and I did check out those shows, and you know what? I enjoyed all of them to varying degrees, but I did enjoy all of them quite a lot. And then, over time though, I haven't really been watching Apple TV Plus too much recently. I've been watching other films, and I've been watching a lot of Netflix recently, been watching a lot of Prime Video, not that's really important whatsoever, but you get the point. I haven't really been watching Apple TV Plus too much over the past couple of months. But when I finally sat down the other day to see what was on Apple TV Plus, I completely forgot this show was on there. And then I also heard that a third season of this show, of The Morning Show, was coming out soon. And actually, if this podcast has come out on Wednesday, it would have come out, the third season of The Morning Show would have started the day this podcast is coming out. So, I'd heard that the third series was coming out. I was like, let's finally give this a go, let's just give it a go. Don't think about it too much. Don't think about the other shows you want to watch. Just give this a go and see if it's as good as some people are saying, or see if it's just not for you. Because I do know that this show has its critics. Like, I don't really use Rotten Tomatoes too much, although I do refer to them quite a few times on this channel, but I don't really use Rotten Tomatoes too much, but I do know that the show holds around a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it isn't loved by many people. And I also know, though, that the show was hugely popular when it first launched, and I do know that it has its fans. So I wanted to see whether I agree with the critics or whether I agreed with the audience. And after sitting down and watching the first 2 seasons and finishing them a couple of nights ago now, it wasn't last night actually, it was a couple of nights ago, after finishing the first 2 seasons of the morning show, I can say this. It's not one of my favourite TV shows on TV right now. Like, I don't think it's one of the best TV shows out there right now. Saying that, I think it's great TV though, and it's very entertaining, it's very compelling, it offers a lot of ethical questions, which I really like how it approaches all those ethical questions as well, and I just find it to be great TV. I really get into it, and although I didn't like season 2 quite as much as I liked season 1, I enjoyed both seasons of the morning show quite a bit. I mean, season 2 had its problems and it had its flaws, and it at times felt like I was trying to do too much. However, saying that though, the good outweighed the bad with me in season 2, and even though I don't think season 2 ended as strongly as season 1, I ended up being satisfied by season 2, and I liked what they did. There were some really great moments and really great episodes in season 2 as a whole. Again, not as good as season 1, but I still really liked it. But as I was saying, season 1 was just great though. Season 1 was what got me hooked in this show. Like, right from the first episode, I was in there with this series. I was interested in the characters. I wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to know what was the truth with certain characters, and I ended up, as what I mentioned, I ended up getting hooked with this show. And one of the reasons for that is because of the show's premise and plot. Like, season 1 follows the story of these 2 news anchors, Alex Levy, played by Jennifer Anniston, and Bradley Jackson, played by Reese Witherspoon. And Bradley Jackson is brought on to host the morning show, which is this fictional morning news show, which this series is based on, hence the name of the show, The Morning Show. So Bradley Jackson is brought in to host this fictional morning news show known as The Morning Show after Alex Levy's past co-host, after her previous co-host is fired for sexually abusive allegations which come out against him. And her previous co-host was called Mitch Kessler, and he is played by Steve Carrel in this series. And there's a lot of sexual allegations going on against him in the first series, and he is being cancelled, but the character of Mitch Kessler, as I already mentioned, played by Steve Carell, he wants to become uncancelled. He wants to get his version of the story out there, whilst at the same time, though, Alex Levy, who's been thrown under the bus with all the allegations surrounding Mitch, her previous co-host of something like 15 years, is trying to keep her job, even though it's in trouble because of her relationship with Mitch, because of all the links she has with Mitch and how the dodgy character and how he is now becoming this dodgy character. So she's trying to keep her job, and then Bradley Jackson is thrown into the mix, as well as all these other different characters, including this one character called Corey. I forgot the second name of the character is now, but he's called Corey, and he's played by Billy Crudup, and he's thrown into the mix as somebody who's trying to bring this station that owns the news service, that runs the news service. He's trying to make the station more popular, and there's all these different storylines going on, but the series revolves around Alex Levy and Bradley Jackson, played by Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon, who are trying to keep this fictional morning news show known as The Morning Show going. I'm not sure how much of that made sense, but hopefully it did. And that was the premise of series 1. And then season 2, though, follows the after effects of season 1. It follows what happens when all this stuff comes out about Mitch, whether it's the truth or not. Again, I'm not going to give it away if people haven't seen the series, if people haven't even started watching the show yet, but season 2 follows the after effects of season 1, and you see Alex Levy trying to find out who she is, trying to really grapple with what she has done. And you see Bradley Jackson trying to keep her job, and you see all these different characters as well which surround them, which are thrown into this messy, networked mix of dark connections, and you see that start to develop a lot more. And as Ronnie mentioned though, I just think this series is great, and I think it's great because of all the different storylines that go on. You know, it feels a bit like The West Wing meets Succession meets the Aaron Sorkin TV show, The Newsroom. Now, I'm not saying it's as good as any of those shows. The West Wing is fantastic, Succession is phenomenal, and Newsroom is one of the most underrated TV shows of the past decade. I'm pretty sure it came out in the past decade. It might be older than that, but Newsroom is one of the most underrated shows of the past decade, which I don't think enough people talk about. And it's not as good as any of those shows, though. You know, I'm not saying the morning show is as good as The West Wing or Succession or Newsroom, but it reminds me a lot of those shows. And I like the fact that it reminds me a lot of those shows. And watching it reminds me of The West Wing through the one long take to get through corridors of just people having conversations. You know, the conversations they have aren't really about politics, which you get mostly in The West Wing. However, the conversations are still just as interesting. I mean, it's not Aaron Sorkin writing, so it's not got that sharp, you know, poignant and crisp dialogue that you get in something like The West Wing. You know, but saying that, it's still good, and it reminds me a bit of The West Wing. And then it's got that whole Succession similarity, it's got the whole Succession thing going on, because you're trying to see who's going to come out on top, who's going to end up hosting the morning show, who's going to keep their job, who's going to be fired. So it's got a bit of Succession there, not really like who's going to get the money, which you get a lot in Succession, who's going to get... I can't even think of the word that I'm trying to... I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm making sense because I'm not feeling well. But it's got... You get the point I'm making. It's got a bit of Succession in there because it's all about who's going to come out on top. Who is going to keep their job and whatnot. And there's got a bit of the Newsroom in there because, much like the Newsroom, it's a show based in a fictional newsroom. It's a show based at a fictional news broadcast service, and it reminded me a lot of The Newsroom. Again, I think The Newsroom is better because it's written by Aaron Sorkin, and you know, I do kind of wish this show was written by Aaron Sorkin. I think the writers are good. I think the first series in particular is very well written. There's some very good writing in the second series too. Yet, it's not Aaron Sorkin. And there's a couple months in this series where I'm watching and going, yeah, that was done slightly better in the Newsroom TV show, because that was written by Aaron Sorkin, and this isn't. But not every writer is Aaron Sorkin, and that's fine. And I do think the writing is very good, and I like how this show reminds me of Succession, reminds me of the Newsroom TV series, and it reminds me of The West Wing. Again, not as good as those shows, but I like that it reminds me of them. And I think the performances are all great. You have people like Jennifer Aniston in the lead role as Alex Levy, and everybody knows Jennifer Aniston as Rachel from Friends. And you know what? I've actually been rewatching quite a few episodes of Friends recently, and I forgot how good some episodes of that show are. I mean, it also has some pretty naff episodes which haven't aged the best, but it does have some very good episodes. It does have some very funny episodes. And, you know, Jennifer Aniston is wonderful as Rachel in Friends. I don't particularly like the Rachel character, yet Jennifer Aniston is great. However, this is her best performance to date. By far and away, this is her best performance because she shows so much range. And, you know, in certain episodes, she's able to convey all these different feelings. These feelings of anger, of disappointment, of being thrown under the bus, of just being completely frazzled. But then at the same time, she's also able to convey all these feelings of being happy, and she's also a bit jokey, and you see her having fun in this series, and yet you also see these really heartbreaking moments with that character. And I don't think it's all in the writing. I think Jennifer Aniston actually elevates the material. Again, I think the show's well written, but at the same time, though, I think that Jennifer Aniston just elevates the material in this show to another level. And every time she's on screen, she commands the screen in a way, I must admit, I never, ever thought Jennifer Aniston could do. Again, she's wonderful in the past, but here she's on another level of greatness. And Reese Witherspoon, who is great in everything I've seen her in, whether it's Walk the Line or Wild or I forgot some of the other stuff I've seen her on the top of my head right now, but she is awesome in this series too. And you know what? I'd say that I'd say that Jennifer Aniston is actually giving Reese Witherspoon a bit of a run for her money. I would say that. And if you don't know already, little trivia here, they were both on Friends together, if people don't know already, where they played sisters. So it's slightly weird seeing them here together, where they're playing almost frenemies, because at times you get the feeling that both Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon's characters hate each other, but then you also get the feeling that they like each other quite a lot and they really admire each other. It's a frenemy relationship, and I think that's done really well. Billy Crudup, if I haven't really seen him much, I remember him the most in the film Almost Famous, in which he plays the lead guitarist in his band, and he's great in that role. I haven't seen him much, and he owns the screen though. Every single time he's on screen, he's so good, and he's a character which really grows in you. He's got some of the best lines of the dialogue in the series. Some really great lines of dialogue. There's one in my head right now, one line of dialogue that he says, which I really loved. But I'm not going to say it because it's a bit of a spoiler. Though, he's great in this series. And I also love Mark Duplass. I'm not sure to pronounce his name correctly, but I love his character Chip. And I also love the casting of Steve Carrel as Mitch Kessler, this sexual predator, this person who has been accused of sexually harassing women in the workplace. And what I love about Steve Carell in that role is the casting and how it's Steve Carell. Because Steve Carell is known for the roles of Michael Scott in The American Office. He's known for films like 40-Year-Old Virgin, the Anchorman films, and Crazy Stupid Love, and so on and so on and so on. He's known for his comedic roles. He's done serious roles too, like in The Big Short, but he's mostly known for his comedic roles, particularly in The American Office. And I love how this series twists perspective on him though, because you find out in the very first episode, I think it's the opening of the very first episode, you find out about all these allegations against his character, and you don't want them to be true though. Pardon me, you don't want them to be true though, because it's Steve Carell playing him. I love Steve Carell. I love him ever since I've seen him in American Office. I wasn't a big fan of him before that, but I've loved him ever since I've seen him in the American Office. And I even love him as Gru. You know, the voice of Gru in the Despicable Me films and in the Minions films. And I love how the casting of him makes you want all those allegations not to be true because it's Steve Carell, yet as the series develops, that all starts to crumble. Again, I'm not going to go into too much details in case people haven't seen the series, but the casting of Steve Carell is genius. And Steve Carell is so good in this show. He is so, so good. And I love what they do with his character. And even though, well, that's a bit of a spoiler, but even though the character isn't too likeable, he's one of those characters which is so compelling to watch at the same time. And I think a lot of that is down to Steve Carell, but also a lot of that is down to the characterization of Mitch Kessler, the character he plays, and the way that character develops. And I also love the characters of, I've got their names down here, Chip, as I've already mentioned. Mia, I think she's a very interesting character, especially the way her character develops. Yankov, this weatherman who's becoming a bit controversial in the second series. Greta Lee's Stella, Greta Lee was just recently in Past Lives. I hadn't seen anything before that. And then I watching Past Lives, couple of days later, I'm watching the morning show. She's getting off a very different performance than she did in past lives, and she's great in the morning show season 2. She only comes into it in season 2, but yeah, she's great in that series. And then Daniel, I love the character Daniel as well. And the series does have its problems. I'm not going to sit here and say it's perfect. And as I already mentioned, I don't think it's one of the best TV shows on TV right now. It's not on the same par as Succession. Although, you know what? I'd say it's better than The Last of Us. I actually think The Last of Us is a bit overrated. And that's coming from somebody who never played the game. And you know what? I'd actually say it's not too far from House of Dragon. I didn't think House of Dragon was as brilliant as some people were saying. It had some really great and fantastic moments, but honestly, I find it more engaging than House of the Dragon. I find the storylines more investing and engaging and more compelling, if I'm being completely honest. House of the Dragon jumped around a lot. I know House of the Dragon hasn't been on since, was it January or February earlier this year, but you get the point I'm making. I like it more than that. And yeah, actually, you know what? The more I think about it, the more I think that it might be one of the best TV shows on TV right now. The more I think about it. I mean, I'll see how season 3 goes, and maybe I'll change my tune when season 3 has been and gone. But as of right now, yeah, you know what? I might say it's one of the best TV shows out there, and it's from Apple TV Plus, and that's no surprise because they delivered with Ted Lasso, they delivered with Shrinking, they delivered with Severance, and they've delivered again here, and yeah. It's got its problems, and if I'm being completely honest, I don't really like the main theme tune for the show. I'm not a big fan of the main theme tune for the show that plays over the opening credits, and for me, I'm a big music guy when it comes to my TV shows, my films, and I'll always remember the opening credits for Severance. They were so good, and I get really caught up in the opening credits because it sets me for the show, and I don't think the opening credits are too brilliant. Yet, saying that, that's not a big criticism, and I do think season 2 is trying to do a bit too much. Like, there was all this. It wasn't really a big thing in season 2, but there was these storylines to do with, there was these plot elements in season 2 to do with racism in the workplace. And I like that conversation. I like how it approached that in season 2. But I didn't love how they approached it in season 2 because it felt a bit forced. And I think if the racism in the workplace storyline was thrown in season 3 instead, it might have been better because there's so many storylines in season 2. So many storylines, more than there are in season 1. In season 1, there's a lot of storylines. And it isn't messy or incoherent, I'm not saying that. But it felt a bit like one too many storylines, and it felt a bit forced. Put it in season 3, I think it would have worked a lot better. Maybe they got plans for it going forward. I don't know. But the racism storyline, I think, is a very important conversation to have, about racism in the workplace. However, I'm not sure if it works in season 2. But saying that, they might have plans for it in season 3. And, that was my biggest criticism of season 2, if I'm being completely honest. This whole thing where they're trying to throw in storylines for the sake of it. It wasn't just the whole stuff with racism in the workplace. They were trying to do all this stuff with COVID-19 as well. And I understand COVID-19 was a big part of the past couple of years. I lived through it like everybody else. Yet, I don't know if it was needed for season 2. But even though season 2 wasn't as good as season 1, as I've already mentioned, I still really liked it. And I'm hoping season 3 is going to be great. Especially with the addition of Jon Hamm. I love Jon Hamm and everything he's in. I love him in everything he's in, and I can't wait to see how he's going to be used in season 3. In fact, he was one of the reasons I got into watching the show, because when I heard that Jon Hamm was going to be in season 3, I was like, I want to watch Jon Hamm in this show, and even though he's not in the first 2 seasons, I'm still very excited to see him. Yeah, I think all the other performances in the show so far are great. As already mentioned, Jennifer Anniston, this is the best I've seen her, and this is the best she'll ever be. This is a career-defining performance from her. She is phenomenal in the series. Reese Witherspoon is great. She's always great, And actually, it reminds me, every time I say her name, it reminds me of a joke that I know surrounding. It's something like, did you hear about that actor who killed somebody and how she killed that person? It was Reese Witherspoon. Hopefully, I made the joke clear there. I'm not sure if it did. But Reese Witherspoon is great in the series. So is Steve Carell, and so is Billy Crudup. So great. But for me, yeah. and they're all great in the series, and it's really well written. It's really great TV, and I just want to talk about my thoughts on it because I finished it last night. I finished the first 2 seasons, and season 3 is, well, it'll be out now, and I'm very excited to watch it. And so yeah, I think the morning show seasons 1 and 2 are very good, and I know they're not for everybody, and I know there's some critics out there who really hate this show, which I think is slightly ironic. We're not gonna lie, I'm not gonna go into details why, but I think it's a bit funny that. But anyway, yeah, I find it funny that there are people out there who dislike it, but at the same time, though, I can understand why it wouldn't be people's jam, and I can also understand why people wouldn't like season 2. Yet for me, I love how it's a darkly networked newsroom drama, and I really love newsroom dramas. You know, they really started to grow on me ever since I first saw the Newsroom. I really love these type of dramas, and I finished the Newsroom last year and I've been craving another newsroom type drama, and then I watched this and I got it. And so for me, yeah, I'm a big fan of the Newsroom. I really like it. I don't know whether it's one of the best TV shows on TV right now. And I'm starting to question that as I've been doing this podcast today. But yeah, it's great TV. It's compelling. It's engaging. If you haven't checked it out and you've got Apple TV Plus, put it on your watch list and get round to checking it soon, because I think it'll be worthwhile for you. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that the morning show seasons 1 and 2, you know what? I'm going to give them an 8.5 out of 10. I'm ready to say this. I love watching this show. I love watching it, yeah. I mean, as I mentioned, it's not one of my favourite TV shows out right now, but I'm so happy I saw it. I just love how dark it is too. And I love how I just love how it's done. I really like this show. I don't really like it. In fact, I love watching this show. I love it, and I'm hoping it's going to get even better with season 3. Let's see what they got in store for the future. And yeah, I am really happy I checked this out, because it's a darkly networked newsroom drama that has some absolutely cracking moments. And one last thing I want to mention that I just noticed in my notes here is I love the end of season 1. The end of season 1 is a stroke of genius. It's very similar to the end of Severance season 1. And Severance season 2 hasn't come out yet. We're still waiting on it. As I'm doing this podcast today, we're still waiting on Severance season 2. And I loved the way Severance ended. Oh, such a good ending. And I was very, very pleased with the way Morning Show Season 1 ended. I don't think Morning Show Season 2 had as gripping and as strong as an end, but I still liked it in the Season 2. Yet Season 1, phenomenal. The ending of Season 1 was phenomenal. And so, yeah, Morning Show Seasons 1 and 2. Great TV. Would definitely recommend it. On Apple TV Plus right now, and check it out, because season 3 it will be airing as I'm speaking, as this podcast is coming out today, and yeah, I want to talk about it more on this channel too. So yeah, anyway, as I said, Morning Show seasons 1 and 2 are great, and as I mentioned, I'm gonna give this show overall so far an 8.5 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that is it for this podcast today. I'm sorry this podcast hasn't been the best. I don't know if you can tell in my voice, I'm quite bummed up right now. And I got a really bad cough, which, good for me, hasn't actually come out in this podcast today. But yeah, I'm not feeling too well, so after this podcast, you know what I might do? You know what I'm going to go and do? Line that bed over there. So sorry if I rambled on a bit too much, because I'm not thinking too straight right now. So yeah, I do apologise if this podcast hasn't been the best, because I'm not feeling too well. But if you did enjoy the podcast, thank you, and thank you as always for watching or listening. And if you have seen the Morning Show seasons 1 or 2, or if you have seen both seasons of the Morning Show so far, let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like, subscribe on this podcast, and look forward to many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. Thank you as always for watching or listening, and I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.